On this episode of AVSocial, we look at how some AV professionals do their own marketing. From earned, paid, and owned media, we take a look at it all. All this and more on this episode of AVSocial.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVSocial, episode 41, Stalking a Brand.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Kramer, AV Beyond the Box.
Hi, and welcome to this latest episode of AVSocial. I am one of your hosts, Dawn Mead, and today we're going to talk about do-it-yourself marketing. Some integrators have marketing departments of many. Sometimes it's just a single marketing pro wearing multiple hats and doing their thing all day long. But on this episode of AVSocial, we're going to look at how some AV professionals do their own marketing. From earned media to owned media, we're going to take a look at it all. And with me today, as usual, is my lovely co-host, Kelly Perkins. Hi, Kelly.
Hello, Dawn, and everyone else. Thank you for the intro. We
Absolutely.
also have Miss Haley Klein from PSNI.
Hello.
Welcome,
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
and further down the line, we have Miss Lindsay Adler with VCA.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show, you guys. So let's just jump right in, I guess. We all either are or have been integrators, and we're all marketing folks. So let's just go around the bend and start with Haley. How do you define earned media versus like owned or paid media? Or sort of give us an overview if you could.
Yeah. So earned media is really anything that you get from positive interaction with your content. So anything from like getting your press releases picked up to positive reviews on Yelp or Facebook or LinkedIn, any backlinking from your blog to another person's blog, anything that somebody else is putting out there about your content to gain a new audience is earned media. Rather, owned is actually something that you're in full control of. So your blog, your website, your social media content, what you're putting out there actively and that you're creating. And then paid, of course, is really that method of promotion to drive exposure to that content. So it's a paid form of advertising or a paid means to get a further reach of what you're promoting.
Right. Good overview. Thank you for that. Do you have any particular preference yourself for how you go about it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think earned media is what is the most valuable. So because now we're in a day and age where it's so easy to ask for advice or get opinions on like a product or service. So if I'm looking for something and I can put something on Facebook, I'm looking for a recommendation on this product. What do you guys recommend? And then your product shows up or your service shows up. That's so valuable, and it's that word of mouth, and it's gaining new exposure to your content or to your company or to your brand. And so earned media is definitely, in my mind, the most valuable. It also picks up organic search. It picks up your organic search rate. It helps you to get new customers. So really earned, hearing what somebody else says about your brand or your product is really so valuable. Owned, of course, plays its own role in gaining new customers, but also to nurture those customers that you're bringing in. So owned, of course, is great. And paid is, again, just like that circle that goes around the two to extend the reach. But if there's something where you're like me and you don't have very much of a marketing budget, really trying to attract earned media and doing that through methods of like surveys and asking for customer feedback or, giving them an opportunity to talk about you, it's definitely like the best way to go about that, and it's free.
Right. Lindsay, how about you? What in your experience is the better or the value of these earned versus owned versus paid,
Yeah, well, I wouldn't
say people we don't have the money for paid, but
Right. No, and I wouldn't necessarily put it in the box of better, right? It's kind of like what's best for you, what fits your budget, your organization, and all that, right? So speaking specifically for me, I definitely migrate more towards earned and owned media, right? Especially, I've been here at VCA for about a year and a half now. So really my focus has been pretty much entirely on earned and owned media, which is, revamping our website, updating our blogs regularly, right? And, working with media partners for coverage and case studies and all that kind of stuff. However, I've really been shifting, and that's kind of a big focus for me in 2019, really is exploring more of these paid media opportunities, right? And they are very nuanced, right? So that's kind of what I've been experiencing so far, really, in shifting a little bit more to the paid media side. Is that I could use like 3 more employees to manage.
I think that's true of every AV marketer.
Like we all can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without using an agency, how are you going about deciding what type of paid media to use?
Right. So for me personally, what I've seen, I take cues from the social media performance, right? I watch all the analytics and I see what plays really well and what we get the most traction on. And for us, clearly the most valuable for us right now, at least, is LinkedIn. So that's really where I'm focusing my efforts on. And that being said, I have also dabbled a little bit, in the Facebook and Twitter paid promotions. And what I found there and kind of caused me to step back a little bit was that each of those networks is its own little rabbit hole, right? So like I spent a day just trying to figure out the analytics, the campaign managers, right? The platforms just to get your ads up and whatnot. So that experience kind of made me say, you know what, I'm just going to stick with LinkedIn right now and try to be really, really good at this one because I think it's the most valuable for us right now. Not to ignore the other ones per se, but just, prioritizing my resources that way.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's definitely a big key is figuring out where your audience best lives and how to reach them. And, I briefly worked with an agency, where they were doing some marketing for a yarn shop of all things. Nothing to do with technology, but, they would do things on Facebook, but they went out and found like Ravelry, which half the people, if you don't crochet or knit or whatever, you don't know what Ravelry is. I only know about it because I was working with these guys. It's a whole Facebook just for knitters and crocheters and crafty types of people. So, I think that there's value into knowing where your customers or potential customers are and just aiming in that direction instead of just scattershot with a shotgun and hoping a pellet hits or something,
Do you guys find it? Do you guys find that perhaps different platforms, whether it's social media or maybe just other types of, paid SEO, that the platforms are different based on what you're trying to get them to do? So whether it's just maybe download a piece of content or actually get them to an event, do you find it different? I'm just curious based on experience I've had. We've had when I used to work for an integration company, it was definitely we had more people fill out forms and do the call to action for events on Facebook, but then actually downloading gated content on the website, it was better on LinkedIn. So have you guys heard that as well, or found that when doing this?
So from my perspective, I think this just really speaks to that aforementioned rabbit hole, because I think it is true and it is so dependent on what event and what platform you're using and whatnot. From personal experience, I've kind of just scratched the surface. So what you're saying makes complete sense to me. I can't cite too many specific examples of it. Maybe Haley has some more examples.
So for me, I guess, so I haven't dabbled in events just because the events that we do are very closed network. However, I have done a lot of advertising with content, and we did discover, not quite to your point, Kelly, but to the point of different things working better on different platforms. So for example, like we had a really good animated GIFs, really, we had a good response from those on Facebook, but LinkedIn doesn't allow that. We were able to put more content out on LinkedIn with a different type of call to action, and that responded better than the Facebook stuff did. There was also different things where you could get to your demographic a lot deeper if you went into LinkedIn rather than Facebook, but it also came with a price tag. So there were things like that. We really tracked analytics like heavily because we didn't have a lot of money to play with. And so we would track like what were the best times of day to do this. And then we saw a significant drop off, for example, on Saturdays and Sundays, which makes sense because that's on a working day. So we would turn off our advertising on Saturdays and Sundays just to stretch our budget further. So we definitely saw differences like with that. And each one, like I said, Facebook and LinkedIn, those are the only two I've played with. But we saw differences. I haven't done any of the market or event stuff yet, but for content, yeah, we saw a lot of differences between the two platforms. So
for a smaller company, or for someone that only has maybe one marketing person like you guys, how do you, as Lindsay said, not get stuck down that rabbit hole of a gazillion different platforms and analytics all over the place? Is there one place where someone can actually just go in and check analytics somewhere, or do you have to do it within the social media platforms, or is there a way that you can do like a monthly report for yourself to actually gauge and understand and make changes with the analytics that you have?
Yeah, there's a lot out there. It depends, I guess. So there are things, obviously free tools like Hootsuite, for example, where you can get a good broad landscape. You can set up a free HubSpot, the HubSpot free CRM version, and you can get that broad landscape. There are certain reports that are free that you can put into your Google Analytics, and you can actually generate those reports, which I've used for a while now, and that's actually really nice. And there's a free resource. We could probably link to the podcast for that. But yeah, there's different reports you can definitely run, and then having just a basic understanding of Google Analytics, you're able to then do your conversions and everything, and set up goals. And so that too is a good way. But a lot of people just need help with that. So if you do have an agency and they can help you out with that, or else finding those free reports online, that's a good way to do it. And then of course, yeah, like you were saying, just going straight to the platform itself is definitely a good way. If you are focusing on one specifically because you want to be really good at that one, then I would go straight to the source and see the reporting that they have there.
Okay.
Right. And so
I was going to say, does that mesh with your experience?
Well, my experience is really different, I think, and that was useful. Please do link that Google Analytics report for me. But my experience comes more from, limited resources, and I mean like manpower resources, really. So at the end of the day, that this is definitely a big focus of me looking into 2019 is, doing a better job with the analytics in terms of reporting on them. But that being said, there is a lot you can glean kind of organically just from constantly monitoring your posts and sites, right? Like right now, for example, like I have Twitter up on one of my monitors here always all day long. It's my news feed, and I'm just constantly checking to seeing the engagement and whatnot, and I'm not going in and digging into all the analytics there. I try to do that on a weekly basis, just take a quick look at it really. And the same thing, right? Like I always keep LinkedIn open, I keep Facebook open more like around lunchtime and like later in the afternoon, because that's when traffic on Facebook is kind of stronger, right? But it's just kind of monitoring how things are doing. And there's a reasonable amount that you can glean just from keeping track of your posts, who's liking, who's sharing, what the engagement numbers, and that stuff is available on homepages of all of those networks, right? So obviously, to Haley's point, you can do a lot more, but if limited by time and manpower or woman power,
right? It can get overwhelming pretty quickly, right?
I'm sorry, what's that?
I said it can get overwhelming pretty quickly, can't it?
Exactly, and that's what I've experienced. Like I'll catch myself falling down that rabbit hole multiple times a day, and I know that I have to kind of lean back from it.
Absolutely. So with any of the media forms, earned, owned, or paid, is there someone in specific in the organization that should be creating this media? Should it all just be us marketing folks, or creative teams? I mean, is there someone specifically who all should be involved in this process, whether it's brainstorming, whether it's actually creating? Go ahead, Lindsay, let's start with you. What's your take on that? How do you feel about that, or what do you do at VCA?
Yeah, I have feelings about this.
Okay, let's share them.
So, I mean, I absolutely drive all of that. And I do think that that's it as a key role of marketing is to really drive that strategy, right? That curation, the conception of the content creation, right? But I rely heavily on my fellow teammates to really help inform that strategy, right? So be it, certain people on the engineering side, that's always ideal. In a perfect world, they are also, the busiest people and are hard to get a hold of sometimes. I rely on my relationships with some of the people at VCA where, we can have lunch together and, just kind of chit chat over some of what's going on. And that can be really useful. And I also find that, well, I'm inclined to, schedule interviews, schedule meetings and whatnot, to dive deep into that stuff. That's what I love to do. But I find that I have better luck in the unscheduled occurrences, right? Those off the cuff conversations. Half the time too, I mean, engineers love to give you that information, but sometimes getting on their schedule is harder than, hey, we're having coffee in the kitchen and they help me with something. And then the same thing too, I definitely lean on some of my more tech savvy salespeople and, the customer centric salespeople also, just because they have really great conversations with their clients on what's going on, what a higher education client is requesting right now, or like how laser projection is, driving conversations into, retrofits in higher ed right now. So that kind of stuff. And just trying to build it out in a calendar. I think that's really useful too. Like I actually do keep an editorial calendar, really just because, it keeps me on track, right? And then it also helps me guide the discussion with other people on the team. And none of that stuff's written in stone either. You don't have to feel like, oh my God, this month we're talking about laser projection. We can't have that conversation about, ceiling mics or whatever.
I found it extremely helpful having at least an editorial calendar. And when I used to work at AVI Systems, I mean, I had it going out 6 months, and we just try and place certain things in there, whether there were good events coming up or different types of topics that, were at this time of year or something, and being able to be flexible there. But at least it gives you a plan or some sort of framework to follow when you're going. Because otherwise it's like, I need to do a blog and I need to do this, but I don't know what I need to do. And all of a sudden there's like 10 things you feel like you need to do and you haven't done any of them. So, right.
And events are a really great thing to use to guide that calendar, that content calendar, right? Like seasonal events right now, it's December, right? So like there's Cyber Monday stuff and, all sorts of holiday messages and, messages of being grateful for things, right? You could take that in so many different directions and, comparing it to industry events also, right? There's like a government video expo going on right now. And if that's your niche, that could be a great thing to capitalize on. There's great content coming out of those events also, right? So obviously, the ISE in February is a big one, right? And Enterprise Connect, I actually had a client event the other day where they were already talking about Enterprise Connect. So, I mean, that's mental note as like, this is a prime topic for end user clients. I need to start thinking about the content for it now.
Mm-hmm.
Haley, it's kind of the same question, like who in your organization should be involved in creating the media. But I know from our conversation offline, you work remotely and your organization is just kind of all over the world. So who in your organization and how on earth do you connect with them in order to get them to do some content work or help you out?
Lots of meetings. So in my experience of just developing some of these lead gen campaigns and kind of trying to get some stuff going with these different media efforts, we one of my more successful ones, I would say, we sat down with a manufacturer's marketing team, sales team, and product engineering team. And sales kind of told us what they considered a lead, so we defined what the lead meant. Marketing was very open about tried and true tactics that they've had, and then the engineers were excited to talk about the product and that we were pushing and why they created it. And then we were able to kind of have this conversation, and that led into multiple planning phases and brought us to a good campaign. So I'd say, obviously for a product or service like that, you definitely want to get at least those 3 parties involved. But if it's something as simple as just gaining exposure to your company, which is a lot of what we're trying to do right now, because we're trying to attract different integrators around the world, stuff like gaining exposure comes down to like sales and marketing again, because it's who's out in the field and who's talking and who's that. So of course it just depends on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to push. But if it's a product or solution, I'd say definitely get product management involved as you can. Unfortunately for me, that means on the phone. That still works. It doesn't have to be always the water cooler conversation, though I wish that they were sometimes. And yeah, just doing your due diligence and following up with them and kind of being very open and honest about what you're going to try and do and keep them on board throughout the entire process, I think is just super important.
Okay. So jumping over to the topic of paid media a little bit, how do you best connect with media partners? I mean, what's a good way to introduce yourself or find out, we have our own internal editorial calendars, but everybody knows, and Lindsay especially from your past, the media groups, they have their editorial calendars too. So how do you get that in and know when the time is right to strike and cultivate that sort of thing? Since I brought your name up, Lindsay, let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, so in terms of that earned media with working with media partners, right? It's not as hard as you think. It's really not. So editorial calendars, just filing those, most of those are downloadable on people's websites, or if you're a member of PSNI, Haley has them in our portal, all in one convenient place, which is awesome. That's a great place to start, just getting your contacts going. Getting out at industry events is a fantastic way. Cyber stalking, media people are totally okay with that. They're professional cyber stalkers themselves. So,
I've never even heard of that. That's awesome.
Really?
I mean, maybe not all
cyber stalker.
But,
but what I mean by that is making sure you follow the media people on all of their social media channels and interacting with them. They love that, especially in a niche industry like AV. It's not like they're CNN and they're battling like 50,000, interactions on their tweet, and an inbox full of hate mail. Like that's not the life of an AV media person. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. Social media is definitely a great way to go, like, comment. They love that stuff. They need that stuff actually. So, think of something fun, witty, interesting to say, or just keep liking stuff. They see that. Mm-hmm. And then email interactions also are always just a really great way if you want to make an introduction. Don't feel the need to like come out of the gate swinging with all these pitches. I think it's good to like reference, hey, I'd love to pitch you on something, or hey, I have a couple great sources, some thought leaders who would be really great to quote sometime. Just start small is what I would say, it's just so it's not overwhelming, because, inboxes are overwhelming. And the other big tip that I have in terms of engaging media is make them laugh. Right. That's actually a strategy that I use just in all life interactions. Right. If I need somebody to pay attention to me or pay attention to an email, I try to, pepper a little joke or just something fun, witty, interesting, be lighthearted about it, be personal about it. Because in my experience, if you make somebody laugh, they are way, way, way more likely to respond to your email.
Excellent. Haley, how about you?
My tried and true method, or I don't know, maybe this isn't the right way to go about it, but for me, I go to the press sites on so ISE is coming up, for example, and we had gone global right at that point, and I didn't have a ton of global contacts throughout the entire world yet. So what I did was went on to ISE, went onto their press list, grabbed everybody I didn't know. And I did a personal email to them, introduced myself, my company, why my company should be on their radar, because we're going global and we have all these contacts now and blah, blah, blah. I would love to meet with you at ISE. And so that's kind of what happened there. And then everybody who scheduled a meeting kind of came into the press list. And then everybody who didn't, we would try to schedule like a video conference, and it worked. I'd say about 80% of the contacts I reached out to really responded. So that was helpful. And then in addition, I leveraged my existing network. So as we get new members, we just got one from, I'm trying to think, I had one from Egypt recently. And I was like, I don't know who to reach out to. Do you have any contacts that should know that you're a member of PSNI now? I would love to build up my media list for that. And they were like, I think you could reach out to these people. And so they gave me those contacts. So things like that. And then if you are doing a press release and it happens to work out, if you're doing a joint press release with a manufacturer or an end user or whoever that may be, asking them for their media list as well to say like, hey, I want to help promote this thing. And then, making the introduction. Those are kind of my tried and true to build my media list big time. I would definitely say if you are new to the industry or you're trying to just build up one, definitely use the trade shows as like a starting point, because that has been very helpful for me. It's good media partners. They're listed right there. Contact information is there. So that's been my tried and true.
Okay. Just brainstorming my own past in making it up as a one-woman media folk for a couple of different integrators. Has anybody else on the panel used or had any kind of success with sources like Help a Reporter Out or any of those sorts of free resources for finding story leads? It's sort of a weird combination between paid and earned, because you're not really paying to be part of these stories a lot of times. It's for those listening or watching that don't know what it is, Help a Reporter Out was founded by Peter Shankman a number of years ago. I think Vocus owns it now, or somebody in the marketing world owns it now. They bought it from him. And basically all the reporters for different magazines, TV shows, TV networks, etc., that are doing stories and need a subject matter expert will submit queries to HARO, as it's known in circles. And then when you sign up for HARO as a self-proclaimed subject matter expert, they send you an email a couple times a day with just a list of story leads. You flip through it and say, hey, there's a story coming up about video walls. I could talk about video walls. So you reach out through the service, and then you may end up, I know with my first integrator, gosh, we were all but 8-person company here in the suburbs of Baltimore. And we ended up in Business Week, Small Business Magazine from that, and Washington Post magazine, and there were a couple different ones, and that's actually how I first met the folks from AV. What was that magazine called? It doesn't exist anymore. AV Pro, I think.
Pro AV.
Pro AV. Thank you. I was like, yeah. So am I the only one that's used that? Because it's a great resource. Lindsay, Haley.
So I personally have not had a use for that. I do think it is a great resource for the right, it depends what you're looking for, right? Like what you just described, ending up in some of the local business journals. That's a fantastic use of that. If that's kind of your goal, what you're going after, I think that's definitely something worth checking out. If you're looking at more AV specific opportunities, I don't know how necessary it is. I just think the industry is small enough that you're better off making these more personal interactions. But again, if you're looking, much bigger picture, you're looking more mainstream media, I think that's an excellent option. I don't have a specific experience with it though.
Yeah.
So I have an interesting experience to it, but it's my own take on it. So we actually, as generate based off of what others are looking for. But what we did, and Lindsay might be able to attest to this, what we did is we created our own HAMO, we call it, and it's Help a Marketer Out. And basically what we do then on a monthly basis is I'll put questions out to the integrators or to the manufacturers, depending on who, whatever the blog entails. And then we get their responses and their quotes. And we have a lot of our affiliates answer those for us so that we can promote them. We can position them as a subject matter expert. We can link back to them, and we have that whole backlinking and that earned media we were talking about. We give them the opportunity then to have that on our blog. So we kind of took the idea, spun it around in our direction, and that's kind of our experience with HARO. Ours is HAMO.
That's actually great, and that's
super cool.
That's a good way to get others in the organization or the greater organization, your members and things involved in the creation process.
Exactly. Yep. So yeah, we've had good success with it. And then what helps additionally then is when their name is in the blog or they're giving us their expertise, they're more likely to promote it then. And then we see a big boost in traffic in turn, and then more exposure to our integrator company. So the whole thing just works really, really well for us.
Yeah, sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy there. You just builds on itself. Nice. Okay, thanks for that. Another tip to add to the add to our list of tips put in the show notes here. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So none of us currently work for manufacturers, but in what way can manufacturers, as a marketing person, that you would like to see manufacturers help you with media, whether it's creation or placement, providing leads? What would be your dream situation with some manufacturers for helping you out in this process, particularly with the paid media? Anyone want to jump in?
So I've had a lot of experiences with this. I think it's a very underutilized experience. Haley can probably speak to this also. She works really closely with vendors and encouraging PS&I members to use those resources. A lot of the vendors in the industry really have a ton of marketing resources. Some of them even have their own like marketing portals, right? That has like analytics and e-blasts that, they'll put together if you don't have those resources, right? So a big part of my job has been just reaching out and connecting with those colleagues and finding out what resources, what tools. Some of them even have money available, co-marketing funds, co-op programs, right? And that's money that you can use to run a marketing campaign. So a lot of the content that they produce a lot of content, so that's a good resource. A lot of it is very like product centric, and that kind of just isn't what I go after. But what I've had really great success with is going after some of these vendors, some of our long-term partners that we do a lot of business for that have co-op or MDF programs, and saying, well, look, I'm going to curate a whole content series. I've actually done this a number of times where manufacturer will give me a budget and I will commission a writing series, right, where 2 out of 3 components, say a blog, an e-blast, and there's some kind of gated piece of premium content, the gated thing, I make it co-branded, right? But really it's like brand agnostic, the rest of it really. So I can produce these, thought leadership style blogs, and I can pay an expert writer to do it. And, it makes my manufacturer partner happy. And there's just a lot of different ways that you can leverage that. That's one example of it. But I think it's very, very underutilized by, DIY marketers and AV integrators.
Mm-hmm.
Haley, Kelly?
Yeah, I think I was just going to say one of our manufacturers, and they're bigger and they do have a lot of resources, but that's the thing is I think a lot of the manufacturers do have a lot of resources. So to Lindsay's point, leveraging them is key because they want to see their names out there and they want to see you do something. So that they will be more than willing. I cannot tell you how often they're like, we've got the funds. If you've got a case study, we'll pay for everything. We'll fly out there. We'll everything. So definitely get in contact with your manufacturer, get in contact with the marketing person there, and they'll get you in touch with the right person. But then like one of our stronger manufacturers has an entire portal that has ready to go content campaigns. They have the editorial calendar. So they basically say, here's everything we have for you and we're ready to go. And all you have to do is simply copy and paste or click a button or whatever it may be. So there's definitely things like that. But I think just starting with the initial conversation of, okay, we want to do something with you. We don't know what have you tried that has worked, you, the manufacturer? What are, does LinkedIn work for you, or is Twitter your stronger platform? Because we want to understand your experience, and then we can mirror that a little bit. And then getting the understanding of, or like what Lindsay was saying, excuse me, doing the co-branding, doing a little bit more of like, what problem does this solve? And then really working closely with the manufacturer to understand their goals. It's a gold mine. It's definitely underutilized and has a lot of potential if you can just start to make that connection and create that alignment with your manufacturer.
I would just put a little bit of caution in there though. I mean, be careful that you're not just promoting their products, and because just based off of experience, there's so many manufacturers. So getting too involved in manufacturer co-op funds and MDF can overtake your entire marketing plan very quickly. So just be semi-cautious there, but you're totally right. I mean, there's tons of funds. They have tons of good content. They have stuff that's like ready at your fingertips. So definitely take advantage. Just be careful to not get too involved in it.
That's a really good note of caution. And that's something that I think I avoid really well just by knowing exactly what it is that I want. Like they're going to try to push their products in your face super hard. And that's not what at least I want to be pushing to my client base or prospects or whatnot. So like I come to the table firsthand and say, this is going to be brand agnostic or like what our marketing is about thought leadership. It's about selling our brains and our intellect more than it is selling any box or switch or inputs or outputs, right? So just, you know, being direct about that approach. And some manufacturers get it and some don't. And the ones who don't get it, I don't work with them as much.
Yeah, you move on quickly. If they understand what a lead means versus like if they want 100,000 names, I don't want them. If they want to talk about just their box, I don't want them. But if I can pitch them an idea of like a solution or of a practice of some sort, then, and they're open to that and they just want to co-brand that, then that's the gold mine. And a lot of them are getting there. A lot of them are hearing from integrators, we don't want to sell your product. And our integrators are so open about that. They're like, we're not interested in your new box. We're really not. We are a solution-based company. This is what we're going to talk about. And they're jumping on board. So we're definitely seeing that shift too. I don't think that people are so product focused anymore.
So what I'm hearing is basically definitely take advantage of your manufacturers if you need help with augmenting your marketing plan, but don't build your marketing plan around your manufacturers.
Yeah,
exactly.
Paid or owned. Maybe.
Use it the pad.
Well
yep.
said.
Yes. All right. Excellent. I think we've had a fantastic discussion here. I'm sure we could go on and on and on. I've got 50 million anecdotes from my time as a marketer, and I'm sure Haley, Kelly, and Lindsay all do as well. But I think we're about at the end of our time here today. I do appreciate everybody watching the show, and I appreciate all of you ladies coming on to the show. Let's start with Lindsay. Lindsay, where can folks find you online or find VCA? And give us your self-pitch there.
Self-pitch. I don't know about that part, but you can find me on Twitter at Lindsay M. Azar. That's Lindsay with an EY. And VCA is at Video Corp on Twitter and VCAglobal.com.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming today. Haley, you're next. Where can folks find you? Where can folks find PSNI?
Yeah, you can find PSNI at psni.org or PSNI_AV on Twitter. And you can find me at PSNI_Haley on Twitter as well.
Awesome. And thank you for coming today. And of course, Miss Kelly, my lovely co-host. Give us your spiel.
NSCA.org/foundation. I work for the Education Foundation piece of NSCA. You can find me on Twitter at NSCA_Kelly or on LinkedIn at Kelly P. Perkins.
Awesome. And as usual, I'm Dawn Mead. You can find me on the Twitters and most of the social networks at AVDawn. I work for an end user now in the government sector, and we just don't talk about that online. But you can absolutely find me all over the social sphere. And of course, here on AVNation.tv on various AV weeks and here at AVSocial. Thanks so much for spending some time with us, and you all have a great day.